Hello, my friends. It is day 310, and we're reading Mark chapter 13. But before we get into our recap, I want to thank you for taking a moment to check out this video. Hopefully, you're finding the yearly Bible reading program enjoyable and a tremendous blessing to you as you study the Bible. If you have not yet accepted the invitation, I want you to consider joining us in 2026 as we jumpstart another year of reading the Bible. And you'll find on our website at www.selflesschurch.org a link that will take you to a registration page where you can join us and learn more about how we'll be gathering together and studying God's Word. If there's ever a time where we need to study God's Word, it's now. And I need you to see that, grasp the importance of it, and join us in the upcoming year. So I hope you'll be there with us. Today, we're just going over material we've already read before. We've already read in Matthew's gospel, in Luke's gospel, the expectation of the Lord judging his people and judging those individuals who have committed or who are committed to disbelief or unbelief, should I say, of the Son Jesus Christ. And we see this in chapter 13. Now, I want to bring some verbiage to your attention because these words are going to be used in other places throughout the Bible. And it's important that we draw the line back to this central idea and this teaching that Jesus delivered. I want you to first look at the fact that in chapter 13, verse 8, a reference to birth pains are made. And the reason that is important is because we're going to hear Paul in the book of Romans make a reference to birth pains as well. And we might be provoked or anxious, should I say, to think that he is thinking of a different kind of birth pains or something else, that he may not be thinking about the same thing that Jesus is thinking of in this text. But indeed, he is. He is absolutely thinking about the sort of birth pains that comes from the creation waiting on the fulfillment and the manifestation of God's promises pertaining to his people and pertaining to his consummation of the kingdom. And so, whenever we think about the words of the apostles, we should understand or at least consider that what Jesus is setting forth in his prophecy of the end of the world, as it were, and more specifically, the end of the age, the apostles took that very seriously and they embraced their ministries as if that end was right around the corner because that's what Jesus prophesied and predicted. We'll see more of this as we read in Matthew's gospel in chapter 24, and we'll get more an explicit reference. And we even get it today in chapter 13. All right. I want to also bring to you the fact that in the gospel of Mark, there's a reference to the desolation. Okay. And that reference to the desolation of abomination is specifically tied to what Daniel wrote in his prophecy concerning the end, right? And if we were to think that this is a different desolation, we would be, tragically mistaken, because when Jesus makes a reference to this desolation, he says, let those who have ears to hear, let them hear. And he's trying to push the audience's attention to a reference that should be abundantly clear, but also familiar to them. And likewise, as they grasp that reference, then they'll be able to understand what he's referring to. So the reference to the desolation, if you will, or the desecration that we see in verse 14 is a reference to what we've seen Daniel speak of, that sort of abominable act that is to take place and signify the end. Okay. Now, when we talk about the end, we need to put a point of reference, and we need to make sure we're putting this within the parameters of the contextual time frame that the Bible is concerned with. We don't need to go all, as we would say, willy-nilly applying this everywhere. And this is the kind of mistakes that we make because we have not been taught to read the Bible. Okay. And I say that respectfully, but most Christians don't know how to read the Bible. And whenever we get into prophecy and we begin to read prophetic books and prophetic declarations, we get stuck and we get hung up because we have not learned and we don't know how to read the prophecy. So to help us, brothers and sisters, and I hope you'll take this for all that it's worth, and I hope you understand the importance and the clarity of this. When Jesus is talking about these things happening, he tells us when we should expect it to happen. And it means what it says. Okay, look at what happens in chapter 13, verse 30. All this stuff that we're reading about, he says, I tell you the truth. This generation will not pass from the scene before all these things take place. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. And I've seen people, scholars alike, take that verse, that clear verse, and say it doesn't mean what it says. They'll explain it away or they will disregard it altogether. And I think that's a serious injustice to the text. I think it is an exploitation of what Jesus says. And if we continue to do that, we'll make it very difficult for anything that Jesus says, particularly concerning this future, this end, if you will. We'll make it very difficult for it to be true. And we'll make Jesus to be a false prophet and a liar. And I think we need to be very careful of this. We need to pay attention to respect what Jesus is saying here and apply it to the context, which is centered around the city of Jerusalem and her temple. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to take a little more of a look at this in the upcoming readings. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 24 and others, and we're going to see how all of this frames and the detail that these other gospels give around this event. But I want to at least point out the obvious things, okay? So let me know what you're thinking. Leave your comment in the comment box below, and we can have some bit of a conversation around it. Until next time, thank you for watching. Take care. God bless. And remember, live by the word.